Welcome to Deck Analysis and Testing. Today we have a look at DRAGONMAID. DRAGONMAID is what's known as a Gunner deck. It's not like I have a problem with it. I mean, the deck I play the most in the TCG is Labyrinth, so I feel like I may be a bit biased. Anyway, DRAGONMAIDs are dragon girls that transform into big actual dragons during the battle phase. The fusion is a negate and the trap is a bounce, and that sounds pretty nice, but there are two main issues with this deck. Firstly, it has consistency issues. Chamber and Parlor are pretty much the only good starters, but thankfully the skill solves this by just letting you search them by discarding any dragon. The second and biggest issue of this deck is that the archetype itself is just way too fair. I mean, you're using a lot of resources for an endboard that just isn't very worth it. I mean, look at Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragon Core can make 2 negates by itself. Meanwhile, DRAGONMAIDs need a 2-card combo just to make a single negate, and it would be a shame if it were to be, used as fusion material for a certain top-tier glue-eating deck. That's why I think the best way to play the deck is to go for a more trap-heavy build. TCG Dragon Link players might have seen this engine before, but Chamber Searching Tidying is a pretty good resource loop that's pretty much a 1-card combo that gives you a bounce every turn, and pair that with 2 more set traps, and now you've got a turn 1 board that's both consistent and doesn't lose to a single super poly. And because Tidying bounces your own monster, we can make use of powerful traps that have a discard cost, such as Divine Wrath and Ultimate Providence in this free-to-play version, so that you can go Tidying Bounce Chamber, discard the Chamber for the trap, and then banish the Tidying next turn to revive Chamber and search another Tidying, so that you can do that entire thing the next turn again. Okay, with all that said, let's actually have a look at the deck. We'll start off with Chamber DRAGONMAID, the best normal summon of our deck. If it's normal or special summon, you can add a DRAGONMAID spell trap from your deck to your hand, and at the start of your battle phase, you can return this card to your hand, and then special summon a level 7 or higher DRAGONMAID monster from your hand or graveyard, and it is a hard once per turn. We'll have a look at our second best starter, Parlor DRAGONMAID. If it's normal or special summon, you can send a DRAGONMAID card from your deck to the graveyard. The card you will be sending, it depends, but usually it will be a copy of the fusion spell, because this card can add itself back to your hand, and you can just make the fusion monster using the Parlor that you bounced, plus another high level dragon. And also it has the same effect as like all of the level 3 or 2 DRAGONMAIDs to special summon a DRAGONMAID high level monster from your hand or graveyard. We'll have a look at Kitchen DRAGONMAID. We're only playing 1 copy because it's not really that good of a starter, even though it technically searches. It doesn't search any of the good spell traps, so we're only playing 1 copy. If it's normal special summon, you can add a DRAGONMAID monster from your deck to your hand, and then you send a DRAGONMAID monster from your hand to the graveyard. And that's what I mean by this deck is way too fair, because it searches like these need to you need to send back a DRAGONMAID monster from your hand to the graveyard when you use the search, so you're not really gaining that much advantage out of it. And also it has the same effect of tagging out. Nurse DRAGONMAID can revive a level 4 or lower DRAGONMAID monster from the graveyard, which is pretty nice. It's pretty nice to have more low-level DRAGONMAIDs on your field to either just tag out during your battle phase or just link summoning with it. Laundry DRAGONMAID can mill free when it's normal or special summoned. It's probably the worst one out of the bunch, but milling free is still not bad. We'll have a look at the high-level dragons. We're playing 3 copies of DRAGONMAID Lorpa. This card is the best one because it has a good in-hand effect. You can discard this card to target a face-up monster on the field. Players cannot activate the target's effect on the field this turn. So it's kind of like a negate. If you go second, it stops your opponent's monster effects. So it could be nice. We're playing 1 copy of the other ones. We're playing one of the red one. I can boost attack. One of the pink ones. Summon 1 DRAGONMAID from hand. It's a quick effect as well, which can be pretty nice. If you go Tidying, bounce a chamber, for example, you can summon the chamber back immediately afterwards with the pink dragon, and then trigger the unsummon effect of the chamber. And finally, 1 copy of the Laundry big dragon. This is kind of a way to get rid of stuff from your opponent's graveyard. If your opponent is playing like Shiranui, for example, and you go first, you can use that to get rid of the Spectral Sword. That's pretty niche, but it is still pretty useful sometimes. For the spell traps, we're playing one copy of DRAGONMAID Hospitality. It's a reborn spell basically. It reborns anything, so you can revive the fusions with this, but it revives it in defense. And also, if you revive something with it, you can send a DRAGONMAID monster with the same attribute, but a different level from the deck to the graveyard. So basically, if you send, for example, if you revive a Parlor, you will be sending the dragon form of the Parlor. This is the fusion spell. DRAGONMAID Changeover can fusion summon a dragon fusion monster by using monsters from hand or field, and when in the graveyard can bounce back a DRAGONMAID monster to add itself back to your hand. That is how Parlor could search the fusion by sending the fusion spell and then bouncing the Parlor to add the fusion spell back to your hand. We're playing one Droplet as well, which is a really strong card from the same box. For the traps, we're playing 3 copies of Tidying. This is a really good trap that is your main form of interruption, except if you don't have your Shio, that will be your pretty much the only disruption you will have. And it's pretty good. You can target a dragon monster you control in one card your opponent controls, or in the graveyard, return them both to your hand. And it does not need to return them both. Even if one of the targets leave the field before it resolves, it still bounces the other one. It's not like Escape of the Unchained, where it mentions both specifically. It just says return them to the hand. And so this little wording change means that you can do Tidying Chainlink 1 and then downtime Chainlink 2, and then downtime will need to return to the hand because it says and if you do, and then Tidying will still resolve and bounce your opponent's card because it says them and not both. And anyway, it has a graveyard effect to banish itself and special summon a DRAGONMAID monster from your hand or graveyard in defense, and then return it to the hand during the end phase. Again, it can revive a fusion as long as it is summoned properly. So if you tag out the Shio to make a house DRAGONMAID that is not summoned properly and you cannot revive the house, but if you fusion summon the Shio or fusion summon the house using the fusion spell that is summoned properly and you can revive it using reborn spells, or the Tidying graveyard effect. We also have a copy of DRAGONMAID Downtime. It's searchable for skill going second. You can target a DRAGONMAID monster you control, use one of the 2 effects, return it to the hand, and if you do, add a DRAGONMAID card from your deck to your hand, or return it to the hand, and if you do, return a spell trap your opponent controls back to their hand. So it is obviously pretty good going second because the skill can set it. It also helps you dodge interruption if your opponent tries to, for example, effect Veiler your normal summon. You can chain this and bounce your monster back so that it resolves. It helps you search more stuff so that you have more fusion materials for changeover. It searches any DRAGONMAID card, so you can search the trap, or you can bounce your opponent's back row. This is just a really good trap in general. And for the rest of the traps, it's just generic stuff. We have Divine Wrath, which is a box chip card. You can discard a card to negate a monster effect, pretty strong. And also your opponent can't really respond to it because it's a counter trap. We have 2 Amaze Attraction Horror House, just staple free-to-play trap, could be anything. If you have any expensive staples, this will be the card to replace. Same with Ultimate Providence, it's a pretty good free-to-play trap, discarding any card to negate the same card type as the card that you discarded. Usually it will be a monster because you will be bouncing a monster with Tidying. You will be bouncing something like a Chamber on your field, and then you can discard it with Ultimate Providence. And then finally to Time Space Trap Hole. Yeah, just pretty good traps in general. For the extra deck, we're playing a copy of Shio. It's a negate. Also, if you use the negate, you have to tag out into House DRAGONMAID. Also, during your standby phase, you get to revive a lower level DRAGONMAID monster from your hand or graveyard. And that's pretty useful because it will trigger the on-summon effects of stuff like Chamber, and get you a free card to your hand for you to use next turn or for you to discard with your traps. For the other fusion monster, House DRAGONMAID is the less good one, and it's usually used to being tagged out by Shio, but it's still not bad. During the standby phase, once per turn, target one other DRAGONMAID monster you control to special summon a DRAGONMAID monster from your hand or graveyard in defense, which is 1 level higher or 1 level lower than it. That means you must have another Dragon Maid monster on your field to actually use this effect, so it's less good than Shio. Shio can use its effect even if you don't have any other Dragon Maids. And also, when another face-up dragon monster you control is returned to your hand, you can target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it. And notice it says when you can, so it can miss timing, and that means if you use tidying to bounce something, if you use downtime to bounce something, it will miss timing. Tidying happens in the same time because it says return them both. But yeah, this can miss timing. If you chain tidying to something, house will miss timing. So don't learn this the hard way like I do. For the rest of the extra deck, it's just generic links. We have Galaxy Satellite Dragon, which is basically a Dragon Link 2, so that you can link climb into the Flash Charge Dragon, which needs 2+ Dragon monsters. It's kind of decent going first, but usually it won't make it anyway, but I guess it's a cheap link free that you can make. We have one Landfoe and one Draco Masters to combo with it. We have one Power Code Talker and one Triple Burst as things that we could theoretically make if for some reason we decide to not go for the fusions. For the skill, it's one of the more fair skills that has recently came out. It has two effects, basically. It has a restriction that forces you to use every single Dragon Maid, basically. That's why even the bad ones, we need to play exactly one copy for the skill to actually trigger. It has two it has two ignition effects. First of them is to send a dragon monster from your hand to the graveyard, and then add a Dragon Maid monster from your deck to your hand. It sends any dragon, even if you can't summon other dragons other than Dragon Maids, you can still play other dragons. So, for example, Cerebus is a ritual monster that is basically a negate if you have it in your hand. And even though you won't summon it, and you can't because, you know, the skill locks you from doing that, you can still discard it with the skill to grab a free Dragon Maid from your deck. And the second effect is if your opponent controls a card only, you can set a Dragon Maid downtime from your hand, deck, or graveyard, and it can be activated during the same turn. So that's a pretty good trap to be setting if you go second. It helps you dodge interruption, and potentially if your opponent is on a back row heavy deck, it helps you get rid of your opponent's back row as well, even though it bounces, which is not really that ideal, especially for spell traps, because you know they can just activate it again. But it's decent. So yeah, let's have a look at the expensive version of the deck. As I said in the intro, my build tends towards having a lot more back row than having more Dragon Maid names. So we're playing the minimum copy of everything else other than the best two starters, Chamber and Parlor. Everything else is one copy, including the spell traps except for Tidying, because Tidying is just insane. And the main goal is just to go Chamber, search Tidying, and then set free pass. If you have another Dragon Maid in your hand, you can maybe go for the Shio, but having the Chamber loop is probably a lot more consistent and a lot more reliable than trying to go for the fusion just to have it being super polyed away. We're playing free droplets, a really good card in itself, but also you can discard your monsters from your hand to use the effect. Free Book of Moon, free Book of Eclipse, just good quick play spells that are good both going first and second. We have Dino Mishis as the trap that discards, and that's pretty much it for the main deck. Extra deck, we're playing triple House Dragon Maid, and just a bunch of generic links that you probably won't make, except for maybe the Nightmares, because you can make the Nightmares pretty easily using the skill, using the skill to discard your Dragon Maid and then revive them with something like a Nurse Dragon Maid that helps you spam monsters a lot easier, or maybe reviving them with Hospitality, for example. So it's pretty easy to get link material on field, so you can use them to make a Nightmare Phoenix, for example, and then a Nightmare Unicorn potentially to get rid of stuff on your opponent's field. And also the discard cost is also pretty nice because a lot of the Dragon Maids are actually fine to be in the graveyard because the tag effect works for big dragons in the graveyard, and the small dragons can be revived from the graveyard with tidying or hospitality, so it's not really that bad of a cost. Okay, let's have a look at the replays. So our first replay is against Glue Eating Hero, and we are going first. And because the deck is made going first, it's a lot more preferable than going second. In our case, we did draw a high level Dragon Maid plus any dragon, so that is enough to make the Shio. So we'll do just that. We'll go Chamber, grab the Fusion Spell. Even though Parlor also can get you to the Fusion Spell, we prefer Chamber because we can revive the Chamber back using the Shio during the standby phase to search another spell trap. Opponent will go Dragonite Contact to get a Neos, and then unsurprisingly search the Super Poly, and there goes our negate. He's gonna discard a Needle Sink to make a Shining, but we have the Time Space Travel to put it right back to the extra deck. And he goes to the battle phase, and that is the worst mistake he could ever make, because did you know Chamber Dragon Maid can revive Shio, because it is a level 7 or higher Dragon Maid monster that is summoned properly. So guys, don't go to the battle phase if you don't have any monsters to attack. Okay, our second game is against Predaplan. Hopefully it will be less of a glue-eating opponent than what we just faced. We did also draw 2 Dragon Maids once again, so that means we can go for the Shio. We can go skill to grab a big dragon. Doesn't really matter what we grab. We'll grab the red one just because it's less good than the green one, so we can just use it as a fusion material. We'll go Chamber Dragon Maid effect to grab ourselves a spell, and again, it's just gonna get tributed by the Predaplant monster. That's why you don't go for Shio if you don't really need to. It's just gonna get tributed away. Our opponent will try to go Poly, we'll go negate that, and that hopefully ends their turn. They're gonna go and Predator practice for a monster that can fusion summon, but we can just bounce that back with Tidying, and because it needs to use itself on the field specifically as material, we can just stop that by bouncing it. We'll go Tidying, and Tidying can revive back the Shio during the draw phase, so we can trigger the effect during the standby phase. He'll go Lost Wind, we can negate that and tag out into a House Dragon Maid. We'll go normal summon the Chamber, grab ourselves more traps for our opponent's turn. We're gonna go use the Fusion spell to bounce back. House Dragon Maid will trigger the pop to pop our opponent's monster. We'll make a Shio back on the field, attack, and then we're back on track, maybe 1 negate plus 2 setbacker, and the Hydra tribute is already used up because the skill can only be used once per duel to add a counter, so he's forced to use the Lost Wind to on our fusion, but that's fine, we can still tag out into a house. And annoyingly, the Lost Wind goes to the graveyard, so he can just reset it again. So that's a bit of a headache, but it should not be too big of a deal, especially because we have traps that deal with him. They go Fusion Recycling Plant, and I figured that as long as we can prevent them from having access to polymerization specifically, we will probably win the game. I will go Downtime to Chain in response to the Field Spell. The Field Spell is not hard once per turn, so they can just do it again, but it needs a discard every time they do it. So if we bounce the Field Spell again, he will be out of cards to discard, so he cannot use it a third time, so they can't Fusion Summon, and they will just scoop him up, basically. Okay, expensive version of the deck in the third replay. I think this is another glue-eating hero. Everybody's playing glue-eating decks. We have the Paula, but because we do not have another high-level Dragon Maid, we are basically going to do Chamber set free pass. We love to see that. Opponent will go Dragonite Contact to add a Armed Dragon Thunder level 10 actually. They're not going to go for the Super Poly play. Even if we don't have Chio, Super Poly is still pretty good against us because even if they Super Poly away our Chamber Dragon Maid, it still prevents us from using Tidying. But during the end phase, we'll just go and get rid of everything on their field, at least as much as we could. We'll bounce back to Chamber, and then search the Earnest. Earnest will summon back the Chamber, and then we'll grab a Hospitality from the search. We're gonna go and bounce back to chamber to search a high level Dragon Maid just so we have material for our fusion spell. We're gonna normal summon the chamber before we use it as a fusion material just to get another search. And then Taizeng will be able to use its Graveyard effect to bring back a Parlor. We're gonna send a Nurse so that we can revive it with Hospitality. Nurse can revive back a chamber. And then in battle phase we can bounce back the chamber and bounce back the Nurse to get 2 big dragons. And Shio will check the back row, so even if they activate a back row, we can just negate that, so they're just not gonna do that and just lose. Alright,